Flock is absolutely crashing out right now, and honestly, it's entirely their own fault for acting like local communities. They were just going to let them blanket the entire country in an unchecked AI-powered surveillance dragnet without anyone ever actually looking underneath the hood of their technology. Like, imagine building a massive multi-million-dollar tech company on the simple promise of private neighborhood security, only to get absolutely dismantled in the public eye because local city councils and everyday drivers finally start looking at your data sharing practices and realizing that they are just a total privacy nightmare. That is exactly what is happening right now, as this company takes some of the most brutal L's and high profile losses we have seen in the privacy tech space. So if you don't know who they are, well, Flock Safety is this massive vendor behind pretty much slick automated license plate readers that you see in a lot of cities, like randomly mounted, and they're currently capturing a mind-blowing 20 billion vehicle scans every single month across every single state in the US. Like, they basically pitch themselves to local towns, police departments, and just neighborhood organizations as this totally harmless, super helpful digital neighborhood watch tool that would literally just quietly sit in the background and just catch bad guys and make everyone feel safer. But instead of actually just being a simple security measure, they effectively built a massive continuous warrantless tracking system that logs the exact time, the precise geographic location, and a high resolution photo of your car every single time you leave your driveway. The system is so incredibly advanced that it doesn't just read the plate, well, it uses machine learning to pretty much pick up specific unique details of your own vehicle. Like, it functions exactly like the ultimate noisy neighbor, except this neighbor, well, it is an artificial intelligence that never sleeps, never looks away, and tracks your daily movements without a single piece of probable cause. And the absolute panic is setting in for the executors right now, though, because people are finally waking up, realizing the severe implications of this technology and actively pulling the plug on the whole operation. Now, whenever anyone actually brings up the incredibly obvious privacy concerns, well, usually Flock and the local police departments always fall back on the exact same generic public relations defense, which is aggressively claiming that the local towns completely own their own data and that everything is basically being kept super safe and perfectly secure on a strictly local level. But the absolute illusion just got completely and just totally shattered recently, specifically in San Francisco, where pretty much independent local audits and also newly uncovered public records completely expose what is actually happening behind the scenes with this whole massive network. The reality is that massive law enforcement agencies and also just regional intelligence centers, well, they just treat the whole supposedly local privacy cameras as their own personal all-you-can-eat data buffet, completely violating the trust of residents who just explicitly promised that their daily movements would not be broadcast to the entire country. It is honestly so baffling to think about, because you have this massive tech vendor swearing up and down to everyday citizens that their daily driving habits and exact data location are safely locked away in their own community, while in reality, massive intelligence fusion hubs are running hundreds of warrantless searches on completely innocent people just trying to go about their day. Like, it completely proves the exact point that digital privacy advocates have been screaming about for years. Like, once you build a massive, easily searchable, like, digital infrastructure to track people on a nationwide scale, well, you simply cannot guarantee who is actually going to be looking at that data. Like, it totally debunks the entire comforting myth of local secure control that they sold to these towns in various places. And it highlights exactly why allowing private tech companies to build a nationwide surveillance grid is just fundamentally a terrible idea in the first place. Because of massive security failures and unauthorized data sharing, exactly like this, the general public is no longer just sitting back and passively accepting it. Like, everyday people are finally starting to actually crash out and take real, like, heavy legal action against their own cities to pretty much stop this tracking. So just recent, for example, in Boulder, Colorado, two regular citizens literally filed a massive class action lawsuit directly against their own police chief over this exact privacy issue. Like, they are actively arguing in state court that having like 31 of these active cameras just quietly recording every single move they take, like commuting to work, for example, or just driving somewhere, or, like, I don't know, taking their kids to school, it's just completely unconstitutional, warrantless search dragnet. Their civil rights attorney literally put out a public statement saying that the police chief has just turned the city into a surveillance state that rivals a dystopian science fiction novel, pointing out that the government basically just gave itself unchecked superpowers to endlessly track the daily habits of innocent people without ever asking a judge. And the absolute most tone-deaf part of this entire lawsuit is that one of the plaintiffs, so they wanted the police department to actually request to see the tracking records that the cameras have captured of their car, and the police were like, nah, screw you, and just refuse to show him his own data. It is a textbook privacy nightmare where a private tech company and a local government can just team up to secretly photograph and track your daily movements, store all of that highly juicy data in a searchable database for 30 days, and then just look you dead in the eye and tell you that you aren't even allowed to see what they have actually collected about you. It is this exact kind of arrogant overreach that is finally pushing regular people to fight back and just demand that these intrusive systems just be permanently removed from their neighborhoods and their cities. Because the public pushback has become so incredibly intense, and also the massive lawsuits are rapidly piling up, well, this entire surveillance experiment, it is currently falling apart in real time as local communities finally start handing the company some massive L's. Like, the absolute craziest, most hilarious rejection of this technology is happening over on the East Coast in Syracuse, New York, where pretty much the city government there just officially passed the ordinance completely revoking the company's operating privileges, and also just gave them a strict 60-day legislative deadline to pretty much rip all the cameras out of the city itself. But Flock basically started dragging their feet and ignored the deadline. So the actual police department had to literally just send city workers out to physically unplug the street scanners themselves, because the tech company, they just wouldn't be bothered to do it. And Syracuse isn't even the only place having to take extreme physical measures to permanently stop the surveillance. For example, in places like Fort Collins, Colorado, city council held a massive vote and voted 6-1 to just get rid of the surveillance contract. But the local police, they desperately tried to save the cameras by proposing a compromise to just shorten how long they keep the data. But the council, well, they just completely rejected it, just explicitly stating on the record that building a network to passively record the movement of every single vehicle is just a big violation of privacy. It is an incredible chain of events showing that just no matter how hard these tech companies tried to quietly blanket the country in tracking cameras, while local communities are just finally standing up, just pressing the delete key on these invasive contracts and turning the tide against warrantless mass surveillance. When you step back and look at the entire scene of what is happening here, well, this massive pushback is just so much bigger than just a few unplugged cameras or some canceled contracts. It is a fundamental shift in how everyday people are actually choosing to protect their digital footprint in the real world. So for the longest time, the tech industry just operated on this incredibly arrogant assumption that as long as they just slapped a sleek wrapper on a product, the public would just blindly hand over their actual privacy rights without asking any difficult questions. But honestly, what these rejections show us is that the public, well, they are finally drawing a massive line in the sand, to the point where towns for example, I believe Dayton, Ohio, and also Evanston, Illinois, literally had to order city employees to wrap the cameras in garbage bags just to guarantee that the tracking would finally stop while they figure out how to remove them. People are waking up to the reality that handling private companies the unchecked power to catalog the movements of millions of completely innocent people just creates a structural vulnerability that inevitably will get exploited in the future. It proves that local action can actually work, and that if you just apply enough pressure to for example, your local city council or neighborhood association, well, you can literally force these billion-dollar surveillance dragons to pack up their bags and just leave your town. So yeah, that's it for this video. Very interesting topic actually. Like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next time.